Hi, my name is Vladik Hananov. I am the chief architect at Internovus. And in the next 7 minutes, I'd like to share a little secret, how we, the developers, can dramatically improve the success rates of our projects. Have you ever heard about the broken telephone game? The one in which people are whispering a message to one another, one by one, and in the process, completely screw up the message? Turns out we really love to play this game at our industry. Let's say a client is willing to spend some money on a new shiny system. The process starts with a software analyst, or whoever plays this role, getting the requirements from the client and producing documents which are used by software developers to build a model of the client's business domain in code. And since documents get outdated quickly, the same code is used by other developers to make sense of the system's business logic in the future. Now, do you see what's going on here? This way of sharing knowledge takes the broken telephone game to a whole new level. No wonder the only response we know to this beat-up joke is, "It's so true," right? Now, jokes aside, time and time again, studies have shown that this flawed communication scheme is one of the major reasons for failed software projects. Luckily, we as the developers can solve this conundrum. All we have to do is to realize that each arrow here represents a translation. And translations are naturally error-prone. Things always get lost in translation, and some even say that translations are poisonous to effective communication. And here we can count 5 of them. Therefore, we need a more effective way of sharing knowledge. We need a shared language, a common ground that will enable learning and communication throughout the project. And the best candidate for such shared language is the language spoken by our client right here. The reason for that is trivial. He is our business domain expert, and that's exactly what we are doing on the other side. We are building a model of his business domain in code. Therefore, if we will be able to speak with the customer in his own language, we will be able to verify our understanding of the business domain. We will be able to learn what problems the system is really supposed to solve, and maybe even offer a better technological solutions. And most importantly, we will be able to do a much better job implementing the most complex and most important part of each system, its business logic. To deliver these promises, the shared language has to meet the following 3 requirements. First, a shared language should consist of the terms used by business domain experts. No technical terms and no design patterns, no jargon of ours. For example, you are not appending a new row to the income and events table. Instead, a new lead is submitted by the visitor. Next, avoid using abstract terms. Even more specific terminology is being used by business people. For example, in one of our systems, we had an entity called user. However, the business people were speaking about visitors, leads, and customers, not some abstract users. Turned out that although we could represent visitor, lead, and customer as a user, they had quite different behavior attached to them, and modeling them as a single entity would have resulted in an accidental complexity. This model and design, on the other hand, turned out to be much more simple and much more effective. Finally, each term of our shared language should have one definition only. Unfortunately, that's not how human languages work. Words often have different meanings in different contexts. Therefore, if you stumble upon a term that has multiple meanings, it means that your shared language is too wide, and you have to divide it into 2 or more separate languages, and to define a context in which each language should be applied. This context acts as a boundary. You can use a language freely inside of its context, but outside of this boundary, the language's terms may have totally different meanings. Interestingly, we can also use this context to decompose a system into a set of independent business components, microservices, if you will, but more of that a bit later. To sum it up, shared language should consist of the terms used by business domain experts. You should avoid using abstract terms. Each term should have only one meaning, and the language is only valid in its context. We can easily test our shared language. All we have to do is to try explaining the system's business logic to a domain expert. Can you explain how system works in terms domain expert understands? If you do, awesome, you have a shared language. Otherwise, you should continue working on it. Once you do have a rigorous shared language, you have to make sure that it's being used everywhere throughout the project. All project-related communication between and among all relevant parties should be done in this language only, whether it's in conversations, documentation, test scenarios, and most importantly, your code, all should speak the shared language. And speaking of code, throughout this presentation, I've been speaking about a software development methodology called domain-driven design and its cornerstone practices, ubiquitous language and bounded context. Ubiquitous language is what I've called shared language, and bounded context is a context of a language. Of course, DDD has a lot more to offer than I can fit in 7 minutes. For example, DDD allows you to use the shared language to write code that literally speaks the language of the business, to make architectural decisions, to decompose your system into a set of microservices, and to efficiently manage the interactions and relationships between them. But for that, you'll have to pick up one of these amazing books and read it. Thank you.